Little girls should be seen and not heard. I'm bondage on the earth! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Oh, I don't give a shit if you clap or not. It's your attitude that counts.
Okay, so I think punk rock has to do with a little bit of like rebellion and like expressing your true self and kind of going like, you know, anti the man and all of that.
Punk rock is, in my eyes, it's self-expression.
Punk rock is a political movement through music, as most music should be, I think. But it deals with, I think, more like white social class, pretty much. But you can actually like make punk about other things. It's just general politics. You can do anything with punk, really.
So what is punk rock really? Well, it started as a cultural revolution, a subculture that embodied music with a message, typically anti-establishment and anti-conformism. But it could be a number of things. It was usually loud, aggressive music, but many bands such as the Talking Heads, the Velvet Underground, and Blondie showed that it didn't have to always be that case. Punk was and is about self-expression and individuality, whatever that means to the individual. People argue that punk rock is dead, and in some ways, in its true form, it is. But influences are still strong and prevalent today. The birth of punk rock gave way to many more forms and subgenres of music, all of which can be used to spread a message and give the artist creative self-expression. So, really to understand punk rock, or any of its subgenres, or any of the female or male participants, you need to know some history. So here we go. Punk rock started in New York and Detroit, thriving on small clubs such as CBGB's. Bands included the Velvet Underground, Motor City 5, the Sonics, the Talking Heads, and Patti Smith. But it wasn't until '72 that the New York scene started to develop and get recognition of pop culture. It wasn't a lot, it was still very, very underground. But the Ramones were a huge component to bringing it to the forefront. Their edgy, brash garage band style was new and intriguing to people. Although, it wasn't until 1975 when the Sex Pistols played for the first time that punk really blew up. When punk rock lands in Britain from the American East Coast, it spreads through the country like wildfire. Many bands emerge out of the growing scene, such as The Clash, The Dead Boys, The Damned, Susie Sue and the Banshees, and X-Ray Specs, and the first all-girl punk band, The Slits. The first subgenre to be influenced and stem from punk rock is American hardcore. With bands like the Misfits, Black Flag, and the Dead Kennedys, punk rock really spread its influence. But punk's impact didn't end there. In the 80s, many more subgenres were created, such as new wave and post-punk. For example, Blondie became increasingly popular, but for the most part, punk like the 70s took a backseat, while hardcore fell in and out of relevance. In the 90s, even more punk subgenres started to thrive, one being pop punk, brought to the forefront by Green Day and Blink-182. And the Riot Grrrl movement is started to try and spread more equality in the scene. This was heavily led by Bikini Kill. Also, ska punk was breaking through with bands like No Doubt and Sublime. And one of the most famous bands in the 90s was Nirvana, which brought grunge to the forefront. While old school punk was fading out, its roots were heavily hanging on with the rising of new types of music and their increasing popularity. All of these genres still exist, and many more were added along the way, including nu metal and post-hardcore. But many of the lines have started to blur, and genre is not as important as it was in the '70s. With all that history, why focus on women? Well, because punk was one of the first times women were given a chance to be the lead.
This time it wasn't an issue of them being girl singers, you know, these were just equal, and they were part of our revolution.
Punk rock gave me a platform to put a band together and do it my way. And that was good for an 18-year-old kid. At the time, I think it was pretty much unheard of for a girl at that age not to just be a groupie in somebody's band.
Punk was and is liberating for women and a powerful way to break the mold and tired, oppressive ways.
Okay, everybody listen up and maybe real quick.
Yeah, but like, what kind of comments do you think we get?
Well, I have no idea. They're witnesses stuff.
Really? Yeah. How can you imagine that? Like, what would a guy say to a girl? It's like, I'm walking away, baby, wanna fuck?
Something like that, sure.
Do you think it's a problem? I mean, do you think that's bad?
I don't think it's a problem because most of the girls ask for it.
How do they ask for it? You know?
The way they act, the way they... I can't say the way they dress because that's their own personal choice, but... No, I wouldn't say she asked for it, but I could say some dumb hoe that you can butt rock her bitch is walking down the street. They're asking for it and they deny it, but it's true.
This song is dedicated to
Punk allowed women to be themselves and not feel bad about it. They were allowed to express themselves in whatever way they chose.
What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is inside of me. It means that I'm not hung up with like anybody's idea of how I should be.
You feel like a sex symbol?
No, I think it's kind of preposterous, you know?
But yet there are some sex overtones to you, to what you do when you're on stage.
Well, sure.
You're not exactly hiding it.
Well, no, why should I? I try to be natural, you know, and I'm feminine and I feel good about it, and I like it.
Punk is unbelievably important in the fight for gender equality and gender struggles and society ills as a whole. Punk was a movement that inspired change in the world and kept making it better and will keep doing so.
That a majority of people go through life living in the fear of judgment of someone else's opinion. And we let it control us, and we determine our happiness by the acceptance of somebody else. In this next song, I want you to believe that that doesn't exist in our world. I know guys can't do the same, but tonight, girls, I would love to see anybody here that has makeup on their face just smudge the fuck out of it. What do you guys think of that?
That I want to make. This is the legacy that I want to leave to follow, you know, my heart and the things that I believed in, and to be in a band with my two best friends, and for us to never do anything that wasn't something we wanted to do and that we believed in. So I'll just say that it's an amazing and really powerful thing to be celebrated for who you are. I think there's a lot of girls that actually don't ever feel that in their whole life, and I want to spend my life honoring those people and making them feel seen and heard. And I want to say thank you for making me feel seen and heard tonight. Thank you so much.
Punk isn't perfect, but it never tried to be. It's a place, an idea, a music. Really, a society where weirdos can convene and speak their minds and just fit in. I feel punk is a part of society that we need way too much and we cannot let go of. Everyone needs punk. Everyone needs to be proud of who they are. Everyone needs to be proud of their own weirdness. That is what punk taught me, and that's what I hope you got out of this.
Joan Jett. That's my final answer.